Hello and welcome to our latest Mingle Mastermind. We are doing these webinars for fashion industry professionals, and my name is Melissa Shea and I'll be your moderator today. And today we're talking about how we can move in-person retail experiences online. Fashion Mingle is a global platform for fashion industry professionals with fashion directories in over 200 cities worldwide. And now is an incredibly important time to get connected with your fashion community so we can keep all of our business and careers moving forward during this time when the world is on pause. So if you're not already in the Fashion Mingle network, you can join at fashionmingle.com and you'll get a weekly Mingle mail, which will give you our favorite online events, podcasts, and resources to help keep you motivated and growing your personal network during this time. So let's get to the introductions. We're excited to have a special guest today, Anna, who is the founder and CEO of Pop-Up Mob. Welcome, Anna. How are you?
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for having me. It's very
Hi,
exciting.
Anna. Hi, Anna.
So, okay, so let's see. Today we're going to be talking about how Anna does pop-up experiences out in the online world, but she traditionally does them in-person events that we're all very familiar with. And we will be going through all of our questions that you put on Facebook, and also if you are an attendee, and you can add a question in the chat box. So let's meet our Mingle Mastermind group. So Beth, how are you doing today?
Hi everyone, happy Friday. Thanks for joining us, and thank you very much, Anna, for what I know is going to be a very informative seminar. Looking forward to learning not only how we can have a successful pop-up, but actually how we can translate that into online experiences as well. So thank you everyone for joining.
Yep, and we've got Shirin. How are you doing today? Thank you for introducing us to Anna this week. I know she's a client of yours, right?
Yes, that's a long story, but happy to be here. Happy Friday, everyone. And yes, thank you to Anna from Pop-Up Mob for being here this week and sharing all these wonderful insights that she has on growing your company online now, essentially taking the activations from in real life to in quarantine life. So we're excited to have her here today and share some of her stories with us.
Very cool. And so Lori, you have the Rivera agency, and you've actually done some pop-ups as part of your business, right?
Yes, I try to leave them to the professionals when I can. I think it's a very specialized thing, particularly when you're adding a retail component. But yeah, I've done pop-ups in my day.
Cool. And we have Noelle with True Model Management. Hi, Dale. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you, Melissa and Beth, for hosting this today.
And we have Kat Schuller with High Tech Moda and Runway the Real Way. How are you?
I'm good, Melissa. I'm so excited to find out about pop-ups. I've been dying to do one. I go to so many. And I'm just wondering how it works and how we can seamlessly integrate it into our live event production platform.
Very cool. And Claire Perez of New York Makeup Academy. Thanks for joining us today, Claire.
Hi, Anna. I'm excited to find out about pop-ups today because we have a product line. So that's something that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and I'm really excited to find out how it all works and stuff like that.
Wonderful. Well, Anna, so you have a short presentation for us today. So why don't you go ahead and hit the screen share and start walking us through what Pop-Up Mob is all about.
Definitely. Get it up and running. Let's see.
And Anna, you're Italian, right?
I'm Venezuelan, actually.
Venezuelan.
Yes,
Gotcha.
I did live in Italy for a while.
Yeah, I saw some things in your Italian background.
I'm happy to answer all of your questions today. You know, getting started with the fact that when we founded this agency 6 years ago, of course, the sole purpose of it was to interact physically with your five senses and basically be able to provide that space, the brands to provide it to their consumers and have a first-hand relationship with them. So as you can imagine, it's been a very interesting couple of weeks being an industry that really got hit hard and seeing how we could pivot as fast as possible. So as you'll be able to see, this deck is basically physical experiences, but I'm very excited to share with you what we've been calling IRL to IQL, which is in real life to in quarantine life. A little bit about us. We are a full service pop-up experiential agency. We were founded in New York 6 years ago. To this day, we have offices in LA, in New York, and in London. That way we can service kind of the whole United States as well as EMEA from London. It's been great. We've been kind of diving into different industries, of course, starting with fashion, and then others followed, such as beauty, accessories, music, entertainment, and food and beverage. In terms of the pop-ups, we're not confined to retail spaces. We love to think outside the box. So we also provide self-standing pop-ups and trucks, which are great because you're able to be in many different places. So kind of get more bang for your buck, if you may. In terms of our services, we are an a la carte agency, but we can help you with everything from location scouting to the actual strategy to, and I'm sure this will answer a couple of your questions, is very important. It's not just about doing a pop-up, but when is the best time to do it? What's the best duration to do it for? And what's the purpose? Is it purely brand building? Is it transactional? Is it to launch a product? Or is it to test the market? To test the market to see if you do want to set up a long-term brick and mortar in that space. And we definitely believe every client has a different purpose, and this is a good way to fulfill it. In terms of our clients, we serve everything from emerging brands to very big clients. This company was basically started for us to provide emerging brands a shortcut to retail. In the past 6 years, however, pop-ups have become very competitive and they come in all shapes and sizes. So for example, the way that we help emerging brands to pop up is via collective pop-ups, where we kind of put together a couple of interesting brands that do not cast shadows on each other, but kind of complement each other with their offering. And we usually have some sort of host, if you may. So an example that's not in this deck is, let's say the most recent one we did was for The Skim, which is a publication. And it was a holiday market, and basically they curated a set of brands that were great gifts during the holidays. So we had a total of 20 brands, and it was a very scheme oriented, but also being able to propel and give the importance to each of those brands so that they could have exposure. And it was at a prime location in Flatiron, and it ran for a whole month. So the amount of press that they were able to get was great. And, you know, throughout the years, we've been dealing a lot with the relationship between really big brands and emerging brands, which is actually how Shirin and I met back when we did our first one, which was for Howard Hughes and Women's Wear Daily. And it was basically being able to navigate these very small brands with assets that were kind of donated or done through friends, and then having someone so big as Howard Hughes and Women's Wear Daily execute that, and how to navigate those relationships so everyone would gain something out of it.
That's great.
So I wanted to today make it very efficient in the sense that I wanted to show you that ranged with different types of budgets. So the first one, which was really successful and really fun was done last summer in the Hamptons, and it was for this emerging brand called Drink Ramona. So essentially it's wine in a can for women, essentially. And she was the sommelier of 11 Madison Park, and she basically decided to launch her own wine in a can drink, and she's doing very well. So what we did for her was a tuk-tuk pop-up. We designed it and she ended up purchasing it, which is kind of cool in this model, is that you can rent it and see how it goes. But then if you want to invest in it and have it as part of your assets, something of this footprint can fit inside of a store. So you can essentially do a shop in shop, pop up inside of another store. You can bring it to events, or you can tour it around. So in this case, we helped her with the strategy in terms of where she could park in the Hamptons throughout the summer. So joining key parties such as 4th of July, Labor Day weekend, going to parties in hotels such as Gurney's, in Montauk, as well as Southampton in Main Street. And it was really cool. And basically what we did was that we turned it into a bar that would pop out whenever we were parked. And she was able to keep this truck. The investment was around $25,000, which, it was completely customized, and she has ever since used it. Up to a month ago when everything kind of hit us. So
yeah,
that's.
let me ask you a question. When you're creating this type of event where you're actually going to build something else, like what's the lead time on working with you to come up with strategy and then to get something like this designed and produced?
So we recommend, the sweet spot is 3 months.
Oh, wow, that's pretty fast.
Yeah, it's usually 3 months. We're in New York, and you know how business moves over there. So we've done things 2 weeks in advance.
Okay.
But something like this, to your point, it's important that it's a collaborative effort, in the sense that no one knows the brand better than you do. So we do our best to put ourselves in your shoes, but when it's collaborative and we start with the concept ideation and the strategy, and then we give you ideas in terms of design and renderings, that whole loop of feedback that we can reincorporate and then send you a new batch is what makes this so successful. So the more time, the merrier. And even though we love the challenge when there's less time, we do believe that they come out the best they can when you have 3 to 6 months to execute it the way that you're envisioning it.
Okay, wonderful.
And I think also, to your point, something that's crucial is that one of the most difficult parts of our job is dealing with landlords, because they're still waiting for their 10-year leases. So it has nicely evolved in the last 6 years, but a couple years ago, we could not lock down a space until a month before, because they were still expecting to get interest from 3, 5, 10-year leases. And now landlords are becoming a bit more open, where they've devoted specific spaces purely for pop-ups, or they're happy to serve these pop-ups because they can see that getting a lot of them in a year is perhaps a bit more work from their end than just getting a check every month, but it keeps their space fresh and relevant, which has been very interesting to see the evolution of it.
Yeah,
I like the fact that this is mobile too. This is a mobile unit. It's not a tenant storefront.
Yes, definitely. And to your point, in regards to that, because we also figure out the permitting and where you can park it. As you can imagine, every city is different.
Yeah.
And there's 2 ways that we can go around it. So one is going with the government, which it's a very easy process, but it's a long-term process. So it's not something we can get in 2 weeks. And it depends on the time of the year. So to give you an example, we did a pop-up tour for Everlane a year ago during the holidays. And city has a holiday embargo where you cannot park any trucks from Black Friday until January. So it's very interesting how you navigate through those hurdles, if you may. And the other way that we figured out is going private. So who do we talk to that has parking lots that are private, that we can have the same kind of exposure, which ends up going back to it being a landlord that you have to deal with. So that's kind of how we navigate. We always try to find a solution. And being in a country such as the United States, it's an easy, out of the box creative process to figure out the best outcome for our clients.
Mm-hmm. So if someone were to do something custom like this with Ramona, as opposed to where you're renting out space in a traditional retail shop, which one is the most cost effective, or do they turn out to be about the same?
It really depends. How we like to think about it is that it's a pop-up pie budget, let's say, and your budget goes into location, it goes into build out, and it goes into operations, which is staffing, inventory management, point of sale. The driving factors, of course, mostly are your rent and your build out. Some brands are more interested in being in prime location and want to devote that piece of the pie more towards that rather than build out. But what's going to drive this cost is going to be the amount of time that you pop up for, because something that we've gotten really good at, and we've kind of devised internally a pop-up calculator that we customize to our clients. And basically what you can do is you can tick boxes, slide things up and down in terms of, okay, I was thinking of having 1,000 square feet for 4 weeks. And then you can see that your budget is actually more than that can give you. So then you're like, okay, do I want a little more space, or do I want more time? Do I want to increase the number of staff because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are selling? Or do I want to make the build out more complex, which we usually do 3 tiers. Like, to give you an example, with Ramona specifically, this tuk-tuk, you can also rent it, and it would be more cost effective if you were to just wrap it and then inside you do something that's already there. For them, it was a complete from scratch build out where you have these tables that kind of come out, and we had to think of things like making the tuk-tuk inside refrigerated, because you have these wines and there's nothing worse than like a warm white wine, right? So thinking like that, and it's cool because every brand that we work with has different challenges that kind of push our limits into thinking outside the box. And we like our clients to come back. So we really do want to optimize these strategies to give you as much ROI and bang for your buck as we can.
Okay.
So in terms of another project that's a good example is we benefits our client. They're great because they love to think outside the box, and we were briefed with a liner launch. So we came up with the idea of doing a liner diner with them. They have an amazing creative team. So this was like pretty much a joint effort. And how we helped them optimize their budget here is that they came to us and told us, okay, we want to do a diner. We want to create it from zero. We're thinking of doing it at the Grove in LA. And we told them, okay, is it okay for us to take this back to the drawing board and give you guys an option that's going to have more exposure and that you're going to be able to get, more from it. So instead of producing a pop-up from zero in the Grove, which is very expensive in terms of location, we found this Johnny Rockets in Melrose that was closed down. And, we tracked down the landlord, super young guy, super nice. And he told us, great, you can rent it, you can do whatever you want. So we basically did everything, and we're very detail oriented. For us, this is a marketing exercise, even if you're transacting out of it. So for us, everything from, look at the chairs, at their benefit pink, and they have and we're very forceful in that way. Like, you see this in this picture and you may think, oh wow, they upholstered a chair from zero and then they printed the logo in it. At the end of the day, we sourced chairs that we could rent for a week that were this pink. Of course, like, the challenge there was finding a vendor that would have so many of them. And then we printed vinyl and we just put the vinyl ourselves. So it's just like, how can we really make you guys feel comfortable that we're gonna be taking your investment and turning it into something like this?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Instagrammability is a big point, because essentially that's organic promotion for you. So how many impressions can you get? From this diner, it's a great case study because they did it as a product launch. So the budget that they used to launch the product via influencers, via PR, they decided to use it in a pop-up instead. They invited older influencers and press for the first 2 days so that they would promote it on Instagram. And then for a week, they opened it to the public. So another cool thing we did here was that we love collaborations. We feel that they really optimize the experience. Because this was a diner, even though it was beauty, we partner up with Open Table. So you could book your spot at the bar, and that way they were able to capture a lot of data, which is a really big, this is the non-sexy part of what we do, but it's really important for our clients, where they were able to capture, up to 5,000 new emails that would come and get shown how to put this new liner on their face. And even though this was a marketing exercise because it was more for launch, they were selling and they beat their sales forecast by 3x. And it was the biggest month in terms of UBMs and social media impressions in the history of the company.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's so clever too, partnering with Open Table, that I'd never even thought about that before. That's a really great idea.
Thank you. So that one, what was cool about this is that anything we did here was cosmetically altered. There was nothing that was very significantly built out, which is the next one that I'm gonna show you. Was basically made from zero. So this was all there. And if you see the floor that it was pink checkered, that was vinyl that we applied. Neon signs that we do, neon signs are very delicate. So we work with a vendor that does them in plastic. So that way, Benefit was able to take all of their neon signs to use on events, on trade shows, on everything. Like, we really do like to think of the long-lasting portion of these build-outs for sustainability purposes, and for you guys to be able to reuse them, because these little parts are very easy and they're things that you need for a lot of different formats.
Okay, I love that. That's so great, because when you create this experience, I mean, your clients must just love it and want to be able to use some of these elements in other events throughout the year.
Definitely. Great. So our last one, which was one of our most recent ones, and this was a monster in terms of a challenge. So if you're looking at this, of course, this was on the higher side of the spectrum. And let's say that the first one build out wise was around 25. The second one was around 75 to 100, including rent, let's say. And this one was more around the 200 to 50, and you'll see why. So Huda Beauty, she's a beauty influencer from Dubai, who started a beauty empire. In 6 years, she's managed to do $1 billion in business, which is, as a woman, to me, that it's amazing. How she just took an internet blog into a beauty empire. And this was her first pop-up ever. So she decided to do it in London, just because they wanted to expand to that side of the world, and they have a lot of demand. And she had this launch, which was called Mercury Retrograde, and she does her own campaigns, which they're super, super fun. And this pop-up was meant to be purely 50% transactional, 50% press and influencers, more on the experiential side. So is so great that I mentioned, because the first question we ask our clients is, when we ask you what's the purpose for you popping up, we basically segment the space percentage wise into, is it going to be 25% experience, 75% transaction, or 50-50, or purely experiential? You know, it depends if it's more marketing or more retail oriented. For this one, it was 50-50. And we created this structure from zero in Covent Garden in London for a month. So it ran from Black Friday until Boxing Day. And everything here that you see inside was custom, from this giant lips to all the shelves, to the floor, to these crystals. There was an experience where you could be, so this is the campaign that she did for Mercury retrograde. You could go inside and take pictures, and it was just very detail oriented. And she definitely beat her forecast as well. It was very successful for her. And not only in terms of sales, but also of the UVMs that she got, the press that she got, and how she was able to take this into the next level, because they kind of plugged it into their overall marketing campaign, where I'm not sure how familiar you are with the UK, but there's a Boots, which is kind of the equivalent of, let's say, Duane Reade, CVS, Walgreens. They don't have Sephora in the UK. So they started putting a lot of independent cool brands such as Fenty, such as Huda, in all of their outlets. So imagine if you go to CVS and you start seeing all the brands that you see at Sephora. So they also used this exercise as a segue to what was coming next this year, with the rollout of all of their mini pop-ups inside of all the Boots around the UK.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is a bit of, of the work that we do. I think that something that's interesting, and what I kind of started with, was, as an agency, how do we pivot in these times? Because how we see it is, it's a bit phased out, right? It's the first time that, our country goes through something like this. And I think that at first it was mostly, let's stop and see what happens. There's a lot of panic, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty. That's clear, we're all on the same page. But as we've seen things kind of pan out, we are gonna be going back, but we don't know if there's gonna be second waves, or if we're gonna have, new normals that are going to change how we live. So I think that what we've been keeping as the core of our business is, okay, if a second wave hits, what are we gonna do differently so business can keep going for our clients, for ourselves, for everyone? And it's not that we're getting used to it, but we're trying to, affront the issue from a different angle, rather than stopping, seeing what the government's gonna do for us. So we've been talking a lot to our clients to see how they feel. As you can imagine, there's a lot of different types of clients. Or the clients that believe that marketing is really important right now, because when everyone comes back, it's easier to keep going and have all of their interests rather than starting from zero again. We have the clients that are open to other suggestions, and then we have the clients that they need to get back on their horse before they start doing marketing. And we do understand that marketing is one of the first things that's gonna go out the window. But what we started doing, and it's so interesting, and I love that I'm here today, because, being very frankly honest with you, when I started this company, it was because I wanted people to be reconnected with human connection and with tangible things, and we've been, it's not reluctant, but we've just been very true to our core, where we didn't want to involve a lot of technology in our pop-ups, because we feel that you're stuck to this all day, every day. And if we can give you a space where you're touching, you're smelling, you're seeing, then it's a nice break for you to put your phone down. Now, it's interesting on how do we pivot as an agency. So to stay true to what we do and what we've been this is how we're conducting business as of 2 weeks ago, let's say, where we have a set of partners that we've been kind of working with in the past that have a lot of experience in this technological realm of AR, VR, etc. That what they do has become incredibly successful. So, for example, we have this partner. Her name is Miha, and she has a company called Obsess BR. And basically, what we're doing with her is that she's been bridging the gap of online, which is e-commerce sites, and offline, which is retail, brick and mortar, and pop-ups, into how do everything kind of, instead of competing with each other, it's kind of an omni-channel approach. So she has this product, which is a virtual store. And what we've been trying to do, and if you may, like, of course, something that we've had to do for 6 years now is educate our clients on how pop-ups can be so successful for many different reasons, but how they're complementary to your already existing e-commerce, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is that you have an amazing brand, but you need your consumer to try it and touch it and test it, and then they're going to become loyal. So we're giving you this outlet for them to try it, and then they can buy it from your website, from your retailers. You know, we're just that touch point for them. So every time that we would tell our clients, okay, do you want a virtual component to go with this? The whole kind of feedback was like, okay, we have one budget. This is the budget. If you can fit the virtual store and the pop-up in both, let's do it. So, you know, it's interesting. So what we're doing now is that for every pitch that we do, there's two components to it. So there's the physical one, which we're taking a lot of measurements in terms of how do we make your clients feel comfortable to coming to your pop-ups that are executed by us. So there's a couple of things we're doing. We're doing branded kits where, you know, it's gonna, for us, all of these safety materials such as masks and gloves, they're gonna become fashion accessories at the end of the day. Just like sunglasses were functional for you to be able to take care of your eyes, now you have to take care of your lungs. So, you know, like how I see it, we're gonna have three types of consumers. We're gonna have the consumers that just do it, they buy the cheapest one they find, they don't care. We're gonna have the consumers that need it for practical reasons, that it doesn't bother you here, that it's not pushing your nose down. And then you're gonna have the fashion savvy consumers, which is all of you, which, you know, you're gonna wanna match it to your outfit, and it's gonna complement everything. So we're telling our clients that this is an amazing opportunity for them to, just as they have their shopping bags with their logos, it's the same thing. You know, if we're doing a pop-up for Benefit and it's all pink and it's, let's say, rose gold, we're basically collaborating with emerging brands and with people that are helping in this way to do, let's say, a mask that resembles that pop-up, and gloves, and, you know, bottled sanitizer that's branded. So that's the first thing in terms of like line management. How do we make sure that they are doing social distance, that they feel comfortable? Mm-hmm. Now, the second part of the pitch is pivoting into this virtual store that we're partnering up with Obsess and with other partners to include, let's say, AR capabilities, VR, on if we get hit with a second wave, or if this becomes the new normal where, you know, it's kind of a push and pull on we're out, we're back in, we're out, we're back in. How can you do so you don't have to stop everything that you're doing in your business? So if you had scheduled a pop-up that was physical, we can quickly pivot into this virtual store. And the experiences you offer are very different. Of course, if you have a pop-up where you have a photo booth and that's really cool, it's a photo op, you can't do that in a virtual store because we're out, we're back in, we're out, we're back in. So then the experiences through this virtual store are more in terms of, for example, they just did one for Tommy Hilfiger and Sandhaya, and the whole, it was like a sidekick virtual store, and you could go see all the merch, and then basically you got a tarot reading at the end of it. So more like this. Of course, like being very transparent,
So we've got a little bit of
some sort of categories than others, because we have this vendor that is for accessories. So let's say shoes and jewelry, where if I put my phone and I put my hand, I can see how the bracelet looks in my hand, but it's not the same translation for clothing.
Okay, so I love that you guys are planning with businesses to actually have that plan B. So that's I mean, obviously we're going to need that for the next couple of years, right? I
Definitely.
think. Have you actually had any brands come to you right now and just and request online events, knowing that they can't rely on having the in-person events?
So it's been a little bit of the opposite. We've had, I think things have started to change in the past 2 weeks. It's been interesting to like keep an eye out on how clients were postponing everything. And then as of 2 weeks ago, we've been getting a lot of interest and, seeing, for example, a lot of our beauty clients are coming back and saying, okay, all of these women are going to need all these things and they're going to be desperate when this is over. How can we safely do something? So they're seeing this as an opportunity. I think that there's a lot of optimism in people, but which is great. I think that's what's going to get us out and normal, hopefully, on and off. But I think it's been us telling them, listen, we want to make you feel safe. We're only working with vendors that are flexible. I think like that's what Shirin has been helping us immensely with, having all of these force majeure clauses that our clients feel comfortable signing a deal, that they know that they're not going to have to pay all these vendors, 100% of the fees, because we're all in this together. It's not just that it's a recession, or it's something that's very close to every one of us. So how do we all join efforts and say, okay, there's a force majeure clause that's taking care of you, and in the case that something needs to stop, you're not going to be at a loss, and I think that we all need to take a little part of that. And we need to take the risk, because it's the only way that we can go back into operating and making sure that whatever comes our way, that business as usual.
So do you think that with online events, is there like a lower entry point for the price, or is it about the same as having an in-person event?
It's actually the same.
Is it really? Okay.
And I think it's a lot of man hours, from what I've understood, from, Neha and her team. But it's all the time that you're basically translating all of those renderers into, coding. And so it ends up being the same. So like I said, I think that, of course, like we're all striving for physical. And I think now more than ever, people are desperate to connect. And we're finding cool ways. Like 2 girls from our team this week had such an amazing idea. They were saying like, listen, Anna, it's funny how after the 80s, all of these drive-through cinemas started to die down. And we see them coming back. And we have some clients in the entertainment industry and even concerts. Like imagine you would feel safe if you went to a concert, if it was like a pop-up drive-through concert, rather than being so close to all people. So I think like this opens the doors to a new dialogue that's really exciting, because I think like this has allowed people to be extremely creative. And what is it that we can do if people do want this physical experiences, that we make them feel safe? Is it a drive-through pop-up where you can try on jewelry as you keep going through a parking lot? Like, it's interesting. Like we're open to all the ideas that our team is coming up with, and being excited about it, and seeing how our clients feel, seeing how customers feel.
Yeah. Well, I know Lori's got a question about having pop-ups at a smaller entry point. Lori, why don't you go ahead and ask Anna about your experience with some brands that you've worked with?
Sure. Hi, Anna. It's so great to connect with you. And I think the pop-ups that you've done have been absolutely amazing. So, I work very much in the fashion space. We produce fashion shows, and we do a lot of like influencer events. So we sort of do something similar to you, but it's not really we don't really focus on things that are open to the public. It's more merging PR with, you know, the right influencers and editors coming to our events. But we get a lot of clients that come to us and want a pop-up experience, and they always come to us and they're like, oh, I have a budget, I want to spend like $2,500. What would you suggest that they do with that sort of a budget, and can they do anything?
Yes, I mean, I think like, to your point, there's a couple of things here. Is it, you know, is it them because they want to participate in a specific calendar event, let's say Fashion Week, where, you know they have the attention of all of these buyers and there's different ways of doing it, you know? And I think like, as retail has been drastically shifting, a lot of players are open to a lot of things. So for example, there's a program in Topshop, in the UK that they started a couple years ago, and now a lot of stores have been following that program, where they've kind of built out this set of, you know, and you can just buy a little bit of space.
Right, that's like 10,000 though.
Yes, but in the US, there's a lot of players that have been doing it for much less. So for example, in New York, there's a company called Naked. There's another company called Leap. I mean, there's, you know, Showfields, there's one in San Francisco, that they have lower price points, and they've done an amazing job in, you know, curating a space that's beautiful and that's inviting, because that's the thing, you know. And like, I would never take a client and tell them, okay, I'll take your money, let's see what we can do, if it's not something that's really well executed. Because something to keep in mind is that the consumers are getting extremely picky and extremely demanding. So if we're all extremely busy, then if we're gonna give our time to an experience, it has to be something worth experiencing.
Exactly. Yeah, I worked with Showfields. I did an influencer pop-up for Fashion Week, but that's actually a great point. Showfields does have a more entry-level price point. I think they call it their lab.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and we work with them all the time. If we get a client and, you know, we're very straightforward. We're like, listen, love what we're doing. We believe that, you know, this is the first step and you're gonna grow. We have great relationships with Showfields and Naked and Flagship and a lot of really cool alternative models that go a long way, because it's a great incubator, if you may.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
I did have a question, Anna. I work in the modeling industry and with advertisers and all different brands, and we're always scouting models around the world. And I was curious if you've done any pop-ups for model searches or career fairs, and if not, are you open to doing that? You think that's a...
Definitely. Yeah. So top of mind, one similar one that we did was for a company called Swipecast. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah.
So basically it was more like guerrilla marketing pop-up style, to kind of promote what they were doing. But I think like whenever we get the most unconventional briefs is when our creatives get the most excited, because when we have something that's non-obvious, you know, if you bring a brand that sells shirts, of course, you know, it's been done before, how can we do it? But when it's something like this, it like gets our creativity started and saying, okay, how can we make it, you know, like to your point, I've been reading a lot how IMG and a lot of other agencies have been looking at TikTok for casting purposes and how they've been scouting there. So I think like times like this are interesting to see what comes out of it. So we can definitely help.
Yeah, and can you tie it in? I know you said you have aligned it with several companies usually, and can you align it with charities as well if we're not selling anything, a particular product?
Definitely. For us, nonprofit work is really important. Some of our clients already work with specific organizations. So what we try to do is that we make sure that we promote it in the experience, that if it's a specific product or if it's a specific percentage of the go to this organization. In other cases, with some clients, we suggested based on like what they're trying to do, but it's always a nice way to give back. So definitely a great question.
Let's see, Kat, you had something you wanted to talk about with doing like a multi-designer pop-up, because I was wondering if that might be a more cost-effective way for multiple brands to participate.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking too, because I do an event during Fashion Week, Anna, and it's multi-designer, indie designers, and it's 8 shows a day, and we've been asked to go to other cities, and I was just wondering if we went to another city, if we could do a live event and then tie it in with a pop-up there. And I also like the drive-in idea, because we could get a huge parking lot and have like a giant screen and everyone social distancing. That just kind of made my wheels turn. But I'm trying to integrate the live with a pop-up, because the designers who would be in the show would then have a pop-up for a week or 2 or even a month afterwards, that would allow them to kind of springboard from the event and market to the people who had attended, as well as just the people in that city who want to come in and see a new store that's an installation for a brief period of time.
Definitely, and that's a great question, because it brings up a very interesting pop-up dilemma, if you may. So a lot of these brands, with everything that's been happening in the past year, such as Supreme and all these drops, and kind of creating this scarcity model that makes you want to go to this pop-up and get it before it runs out. That's a lot of the reasons why clients want to pop up, to kind of incentivize this demand of and scarcity, which it's important based on their marketing strategies. But the other portion, and why Obsess has managed to grow so much, and this Tommy Sandhaya case study is kind of relevant to what you said, because they did the show with her in New York, and they had a pop-up, and then they wanted to make sure that all the clothes that were there, and it was kind of ready to buy when the show was going on, they wanted to make sure that everyone in the US had access to it. So it's a really good way to do that. And to your point, when we started, we always thought, oh, New York, LA, they're the super exciting markets. This is where we're going to be. And the past 3 years, a lot of brands have been realizing that their budgets can get stretched so much if you go to markets that have disposable income, that have a lot of following, such as Texas, Chicago, Portland. So we've been doing a lot of those, and the feedback is amazing, because if you think about it, something like New York, everyone's doing so much in New York, there's always an event, but then you go to a place like Dallas, and there's a need for this. So when you go there, everyone's so appreciative, rather than a New Yorker that's walking by and they're like, oh, I've seen this already,
That's such a great point. And I love that to help, especially new brands that want to do a big splash, because like I noticed your price points, between 25,000 and 100K. I mean, that's very much the same amount of money that a brand has to put in to do a show at New York Fashion Week. And it really seems to me that this actually is almost a smarter opportunity, because you're really creating fans that are going to engage with you, whereas a fashion show lasts 10 minutes and you've just spent $100,000.
And maybe you can do the event at the pop-up.
Definitely.
Yeah, you could do your fashion show, but also the retail.
Convert it.
Yeah,
they just accomplish different goals as someone who
yes,
produces fashion shows.
Absolutely. And well, yeah, I mean, like Lori has worked with so many amazing brands, international and American, putting on official shows at New York Fashion Week. But occasionally there's a designer where you'll say, this is like, you and I went through this a couple of months ago with a designer who were like, you're not ready to do.
Yeah,
you know,
she should have done a pop-up with Anna for sure. Absolutely, 100%. Because if you don't have the budget to do it right, she's not getting her lookbook photos out of that. She didn't get the necessarily, in my opinion, the right people there.
Yeah,
She
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah, so that's cool. Well, I know you've worked with Shirin with getting some of the legal issues taken care of. I'm wondering, like, from the brand's perspective, like, what do you recommend that they need to prepare for, as far as like, what could possibly go wrong that you need to have a contract for? I mean, obviously switching from in-person to online is a big issue right now, but have you guys looked at it from the perspective of what the brand needs to be prepared for?
Yes, I think planning is crucial. And I think, like, being clear since the beginning, because I think that if a brand is not very open or excited about this virtual pivot, then I highly suggest, working with vendors and agencies that are open to the possibility of things getting postponed or canceled, and I think, like, this is where a good lawyer is very important, just to take care of everyone, because this is not so much a battle, it's more, we're in this together. So how can we also make sure that you feel comfortable investing money when we know times are hard, when we know there's uncertainty, when we know that we don't know how long this is going to last, and how is it going to come to us? Are we going to go back and then, quarantine again? We don't know that.
Shirin, what do you think a brand needs to think about as they're planning this out, to make sure that they've thought through all possible legal issues?
Absolutely. So in terms of planning for a brand, as Anna and I have experienced for many years, expectations is key. A brand needs to, as Anna mentioned, first sit down, figure out what it is that you're trying to accomplish and what your budget is, and put it all on paper. And that's something that we've been, working on over the years, and sort of managing these expectations that come with these, wide-eyed brands that want to do these great benefit style pop-ups without the budget for it. So making sure that you've got a contract in place, you've got the scope of work all written out, so Pop-Up Mob has an understanding of what they're able to do for you, and you have an understanding of what it's going to take to get it done. And then, of course, as things happen, and as maybe during the creative process, there may be changes that are being made. There's also so many moving parts when it comes to a pop-up, as Anna mentioned. There's the lease agreement, right? So, you have to consider that. Then there's the vendors for the build out, the subcontractors. All of these things require contracts, or should have contracts in place. And all of those contracts need to make sure that everyone is on board with what is being done. And along the way, when there are changes being made, and there will always be changes being made during a pop-up, that those things are communicated, are revised, and put out in writing, so that, if there is a budgetary change, that is, communicated, that is approved. The last thing you want to have is a situation where the client is unhappy because, they wanted this fabulous thing, but then there was so many changes, and now the budget is expanded by double, maybe even. And now, there's an issue as to who's going to pay for that. And through the years, we've been trying to get to a point where there's a meeting ground where brands really appreciate all the different elements that need to take place. So Pop-Up Mob is an agency, and they're part of the creative process, and part of the fee goes towards the things that they will be doing for the pop-up. But they also are contractors, in the sense they have to hire subcontractors to do the build outs, to connect with the landlords. So they also take on certain obligations and responsibilities, which ultimately needs to be paid for by the brand. So the brand needs to be aware, and obviously to the extent that, you know, situations like what just happened last month with the mandate of social distancing and quarantine, those that didn't have force majeure clauses in place are left scrambling, trying to figure out who's going to pay for the pop-ups now, because, you know, certain things were built out. And, you know, obviously we do whatever we can on our end, but sometimes brands need to also, you know, get up to speed with respect to what their expectations are. And some of the larger brands, of course, sometimes take a longer time to go through that process, the legal process, so to speak, and getting those contracts finalized. But we emphasize that if you want to get it done, get in the planning stage early, get those contracts done, make sure the terms and conditions are exactly what you want, put in the budget, make sure that the modifications are in writing, so that so there's no disappointment in the end, and everyone is left happy and satisfied.
Yeah, and I think for new brands who've never done this before, it's really important to have your own lawyer, because that lawyer can help you ask questions that maybe you haven't thought of, so that your expectations are set. I mean, you don't know what you don't know is the biggest problem.
I think that's an amazing point, and I'm more than happy to share that's how Shirin and I met, because we were a self-funded agency with, you know, one of our first clients was this Women's Wear Daily and Howard Hughes. And of course, you have someone like that sending you a contract. We didn't have the money to pay a lawyer to look at it. And there was an indemnity clause that was not mirrored. So it was not a mutual indemnity. It was basically, and, you know, I'm an engineer, I'm not a lawyer. So for me, that was Chinese. And, you know, you're so excited, you're getting your first project signed, and it's so much money, and you just look it over and it sounds good. So what ended up happening was that they did a whole MTA campaign around New York to promote these emerging brands, which at the end of the day was an amazing hook for the brands. Because if you're a brand that's just starting and you participate in this project, which has no financial repercussions, like you had to give them a rev share of your sales, and they ask you for your lookbook pictures, and they tell you, we're gonna do a whole campaign around New York with your brand in it. I mean, that sounds like a dream, right? So basically one of these brands had asked a friend for a favor to take these pictures, and in their contract there was copyright infringement, like she could only use them for her lookbook. But she didn't know either. We were all inexperienced there. And what ended up happening was that this photographer, I mean, by all means, it's in her right. She told this girl, you gave my pictures to Women's Wear Daily and Howard Hughes. How dare you? She got herself a lawyer. She sued them. And then because of our indemnity clause, automatically we were the ones that had to deal with the whole lawsuit.
Yeah, and people really don't understand how photographers work, and that you do have to license for every possible use. People think that because they hire a photographer, they own the pictures, but actually the photographer owns the pictures. So
that's models too.
We really need to have.
It's the same with models though, and that's why it's good to book a model through an agency like True Model Management.
Yeah, Dale, do you have anything to add about this type of situation?
I've heard of, luckily have not been in any of the situations that Anna and Shirin were describing, but I absolutely support having a good lawyer or team of lawyers on hand, because as your company is growing, you want to prevent these and not have to be reactive. You know, no one likes a lawsuit, and you know, most of the people we deal with are very good people, but you never know what's going to happen in business, so you need to protect yourself. So I fully support what everyone on this panel is doing.
And just to point to that, it's so much cheaper to get a lawyer to just review a contract and let you know in plain English what it means and what it says, so that you can make that decision whether or not this is going to work for you, as opposed to signing that agreement and then finding out later what that really entails, finding yourself in court or in a contract dispute, which is going to cost you 10 times plus more to resolve.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like if you can't afford a lawyer, you should not do an event.
Right. And if you don't understand it, don't sign it. Ask the questions and seek assistance, because there's no one who knows everything. So you need a community and a village in place to assist when you're running a business. So
Absolutely.
communities like Fashion Mingle are great for that, because you can meet all the people to help support you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's, I know Beth is my co-founder with Fashion Mingle, and was in some other startups before we got together. And Beth, you've experienced the legal issues through that were pretty scary, huh?
I did. We actually hired an influencer, and she sent us a picture of what we thought was her recipe and her food, and it turned out it was a stock photo, and we ran it and got slapped with a very big lawsuit because we were actually a print magazine at the time. Wow. And we thought we checked it thoroughly, but some of these things, when you work with a big influencer, you think, oh my gosh, they're known as a major food blogger. They're never going to, take a recipe and show a stock photo of it, but you can't be too careful.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, I think what we have taken out of this is that our industry moves at the speed of light. I mean, like I mentioned, we've had projects that, like Nike came to us 2 weeks before with this massive project. Do you want to do it? Can you do it? Do it. And when you're moving that fast, you have kind of a set of priorities in your mind where, okay, you need to deliver, you need to do this. So, a contract is the last thing that you care about, because you just want to get it over with. You want to sign it and you want to get on with your job.
It's an exciting opportunity. You don't want to, and you need every minute to pull it off.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, Claire, I wanted to bring you into the conversation to talk about New York Makeup Academy, because I know you guys do, you're doing online classes now, but you also do makeup and hair classes in New York City, but you have a line of cosmetics that are branded for New York fashion in New York Makeup Academy. So I'd love to talk about how, beauty brands, do you have could get involved? Do you have a question?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Anna, for your presentation. It was very informative. So the beauty market is really saturated with, kind of products. And I just wanted to know, can you give me an example of a successful beauty pop-up that you've done, which have been like more for smaller brands rather than, things like Huda Beauty and Benefit that are really big brands? Is there something that you've done for maybe smaller brands that has been very successful? And can you tell me about what made it unique?
Definitely. So I think what we love about beauty is that I always love to tell my beauty clients that you can't smell the internet, right? So beauty is something that is extremely tangible because it reacts different with everyone's skin, so it's very hard even with technology to see how it would look, how it feels, how does your skin go throughout the day? So yes, there's a lot of competition. So you have these bigger clients doing crazy pop-ups because they have to stay current. But in our experience, even if it's a smaller brand with, a simpler pop-up, if you may, they do go a long way because they start getting a lot of following. So a lot of these collective ones that we've done, and we've done them for, more wellness and more beauty, everything from Onami to, I can show you the list, but what's been really fulfilling to see how some of these brands that we popped up 5 years ago, and they were minuscule with 2 people in their team, now they are really successful brands that have managed to grow a lot. And it's just that, it's like for emerging brands, beauty is more on the testing side. It's like how you have sampling in a supermarket, and something so simple is what makes the conversion and you want to buy. And it's an easy buy, because if you go out for beauty and you like something, it's going to be $20, $30, maximum $50. So it's an easy buy. If you like it, you buy it, versus if it's more of a fashion brand that's, you know, in the hundreds. And so my advice to you is, as a beauty client, I would not be afraid to do a simpler pop-up. I think that, you know, pop-ups, even if they're simple, what I like to apply is the furniture model. You know, I think that when IKEA came out, it showed the world that you don't to have crazy but have beautiful houses. You know, it's the same for pop-ups. Like vinyl goes a long way, paint goes such a long way, and there's a lot of cool ways to collaborate, you know, with like let's say artists and painters from NYU and Parsons, and we've done that a lot. For MGEMI, they had this wall and they didn't have more budget, and we basically told them, do an in-residency program with, you know, Parsons students, where 1 month you do competitions and you choose one, and once a month they come and they do this whole mural. All you pay them for is their supplies, you know, and they're gonna get so much. So it's kind of a puzzle on what can each person get from one another. But for your point in terms of beauty brands, I think that the whole experience is about being able to try it. And if you give people a beautiful space that's been done well with like the right vinyl, the right paint, the right pieces, it's definitely a great use.
Do you think that with the current situation, I mean, do you have any ideas for something that would work for a beauty product online in a virtual space?
I mean, there's a lot of amazing technology that's been getting better and better throughout the years, like Modiface, etc., that like really allows you to see. We're working with a couple of clients to see how we do this testing part more physical. Is it, you know, with the Ipsies of the world, do we send you kits home with these samples? We have a couple of clients that in beauty that are actually going through with their pop-ups in the next couple months. And what we're doing with them is seeing how we can do these samples more on a one-use basis, which is something to consider overall. Okay. How is beauty gonna transition from a testing point where you don't wanna grab the same thing everyone's grabbing, which is so interesting because at the end of the day, we've been really striving for sustainability in the past years. Mm-hmm. And I personally feel that with everything that's gonna go, that's going on, we're going to revert a little bit because now safety is kind of the priority.
Yeah, we're in a really tough situation with that. It's painful to think about how much is getting thrown away every day with the PPE, but it has to be done. Well, I like thinking outside the box on pop-ups, and I know Dell has True Model Management, and has to do model searches all the time. Have you guys ever done anything with models?
Yes. So I think that your internet was down when we.
Oh, okay. Did I miss that conversation?
Yeah. But the answer is yes. Basically, we've done a couple.
Okay. So tell us a little bit, like before we sign off, what are some of the like out of the box or unusual types of brands that you've done that don't fit within the traditional apparel beauty market?
Oh my God. My favorite, I guess, a good one. So I'll give you two examples, one on the bigger side and then one on the smaller. So for Spotify, they wanted to find a way to promote Day of the Dead for their Latin community. So taking inspiration on the Coco movie, I don't know if you've seen it, but this bridge that connects the living with the dead that's made of marigold flowers. So we built a 30-foot bridge inside of a pond that was made of 150,000 real buds of marigolds. So that's like a very out of the box idea, and it was purely promotional, right? Because you would go there, you would see Spotify, you would see they have this Viva Latino portion, so that was a really good one. Another one on the guerrilla marketing side with an emerging brand, they were actually launching their product. It's an Italian brand, and basically what they do is they do really cool straps for the iWatch that are sports friendly. So you can wear it while playing football. So what we did is we hire a bunch of actors and we dressed them up in sports attire, like cheerleader, football. And the day that iWatch launched, we placed them in front of the Apple store in Fifth Avenue. Okay. And they were like throwing balls, and it was all like signage so that you could go buy your iWatch, and then you could go buy this, you know, and that was like a really fun pop-up experience, because it was like a small footprint next to the Apple store. All we had to do was get a permit for the sidewalk to sell, and then it was mostly theatrics, you know, and it was great. Like, of course, all this like press outlets that came to the Apple store wanted to interview them, and it was very outside the box and unexpected.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for all of the great ideas and that you shared today. It really gives us some hope that, you know, someday we'll soon be getting into these in-person events, but also some really good ideas for doing online events. We do want to keep brainstorming with our members on our Facebook page, so you can go to facebook.com/fashion mingle, and if you have any ideas or questions, we'll fill those out to Anna so that she can get back with you. I'm sure she's looking to book some stuff for this year, and we're already planning for next year as well, when things hopefully will be in a lot better shape.
Definitely. No, thank you for having me. Happy to answer any of your questions, and I'm glad everyone's safe, and let's keep thriving.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you, ladies.